Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the Tatiana Show. Today is February 9th, 2016, and I'm here in beautiful New Jersey with my Liberty.me mug. Joined today by Josh Scigala from Voltoro. Hello Josh, how's it going?
Tatiana, always wonderful to see you, always refreshing. Before the show, I was like, oh, so much work, going at it, and then now I'm awake.
Well, you have to be awake because we have a really great guest today.
I
MK
know.
Lords she works at Airbitz, but more importantly, she's an amazing woman. I've been friends with her for quite a while. She also does these really great, insightful interviews. She works with Bitcoin Not Bombs and overall is a bit of a liberty activist in addition to her many, many talents. So welcome, MK. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Tatiana. It's great to be talking with you again. I've interviewed you on my show, and I was doing interviews, and that was awesome. And yeah, we have been friends for a while, and you're an awesome lady too. So it's great to finally be on your show. So
Yeah.
excited.
Well, you know what? Somebody had mentioned to me, they're like, why don't you have any women on your show? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't. And I was like, but I know so many incredible women. I get frustrated when people say there's no women in Bitcoin because there are a ton of really cool women in Bitcoin.
There are.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, we just sent out a bunch of emails to people and we didn't discriminate based on gender. But I kind of beefed up the list a little bit and you were definitely on there. So I'm glad we're able to have you on today.
Sweet. Me too.
Cool. So you just recently moved to beautiful sunny San Diego. Tell me a little bit about your new position at Airbitz and what's the scoop over there?
Yeah, so I moved out to San Diego in October for Airbitz, and I'm their community manager. So I make sure that the people using our app are happy. I listen to their feedback if things need to be changed. I make a lot of the content. I promote and speak at conferences, and just kind of help out any way I can. Organize meetups and organize other events. So yeah, I kind of do a lot of the stuff that I was doing kind of as a hobby before I started working at Airbitz, because I kind of got into Bitcoin a couple of years ago. I just became super fascinated with it, and yeah, I just kept pursuing it, and yeah, now I get to do a lot of that stuff. And Airbitz is a wonderful team of people. I really feel lucky to have found such a great group of people to work with in Bitcoin.
So for the folks that don't know, explain a little bit what Airbits is, because there's so many, names with bits and bits and coin and stuff in them. And Airbits is really one of the best companies I know in Bitcoin, really pushing a lot of the technology forward in wallets. Tell us what you guys do.
Yeah, so Airbitz is a security platform, and we're best known for our Bitcoin mobile app. So we started out as a merchant directory to show people all of the merchants that were nearby them that would take Bitcoin. We expanded to become a Bitcoin mobile app. So right now, you can buy and sell Bitcoin with a bank account through our app. You can buy discounted gift cards for Starbucks and Target. And we're also going to be adding a couple new features too. So it's a very feature-rich, heavy app. You can also do a little bit of accounting. We just released a video last week how you can keep up with your accounting on Airbitz, and it has something in there for everyone, and it also stays true to the privacy and security standards of the most hardcore Bitcoin enthusiasts.
Yeah, that's important. I mean, it's, Bitcoin, there's really and this is one of the hardest things at the start of Bitcoin when it's still developing is this no margin of error problem. And, for us to get to the space where grandma and granddad are sitting there swiping away on their iPads, sending money here and there, we have to really make it simple but still secure. And that
Yeah.
juggling act is one that's getting worked out, especially with you guys.
Yeah, and we really wanted to focus on bringing Bitcoin to everyone. So we didn't compromise any security standards, but we've also made the app really, really easy to use and resemble kind of the mobile banking apps that already exist. So a lot of the feedback that I get from people outside of Bitcoin is really good. They're like, wow, this is something I can actually use. This is something that I understand better. And we've taken, we've gone to great lengths to keep that very, very easy to use use, even if you don't know anything about Bitcoin. And I mean, of course, I'm biased. I've used several Bitcoin apps, and especially when I first got into Bitcoin, I was just like, this is kind of difficult to use. If I didn't already know a lot about Bitcoin, I would have found, other wallets really, really difficult. But Airbitz kind of, you know, puts all of that under the hood, and you don't see a lot of the hardcore technical stuff that's going on there, but you just see an app that works. And yeah, I think we've done a good job at balancing that.
MK, so I have a couple questions for you. It was really appealing to me hearing that Airbitz makes accounting simple. I have my business, Crypto Media Hub, and then last year we did a ton of business in a number of different cryptocurrencies, and it is a nightmare because now I have to try and figure it all out. And LibreTax is supposed to be good, but I can't even figure out how to install it, and I basically am kicking the can down the road, which I'm sure my accountant will not appreciate. Tell me a little bit about the Airbitz accounting feature, and can I use Airbitz on a browser, or is it only on my cell phone?
So it's only on mobile right now. It's just on mobile devices. That's part of our security story, because when you have a web wallet, it opens it up to a lot more attacks. Whereas if it's on your phone, it's going to be a lot more secure. And we also think that that's kind of the future. We think that's where things are heading in general, is to the app versions on mobile devices. And we think that they're a lot more accessible to a broader range of people too. So we kind of see, like, in the future, people are going to be moving towards that. So yeah, and as far as the accounting feature, it's really great. Now, right now, it's only for Bitcoin. You don't have it for other cryptocurrencies, but it is just for Bitcoin. And whenever you send or receive Bitcoin, you have an option to tag it as income, exchange, transfer, or I can't believe I'm blanking on this. Income, exchange, transfer, or let's see, I have it right here. But yeah, you basically mark it with very familiar accounting terms. You're able to basically add notes to your app. You can say,
That's important.
there's a drop-down menu to the side when you tag it as income or transfer, and you can basically choose from a lot of familiar terms, but also you can add your own terms too. And what it does is, it's kind of cool because it keeps a record of everything, and it shows. So expense would be the other one. I just had to make that clear. So yeah, expense, income, transfer, exchange. These are all very familiar
Fantastic.
accounting terms. So when it shows in your history, it's showing the current Bitcoin price at the time. But if you go into the details, you can see the price that it was at the time of the transaction. So this is really useful, especially tax season's coming up. A lot of people are going to be dealing with these problems. They're like, what was Bitcoin when I made this
it's
purchase?
such a simple thing, isn't it? But no one offers it. So that's really good to see, like this historical data of what was the price at a certain time. Super important.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Well, I think that, a lot of times this is something that will prevent a business from accepting Bitcoin, is because, okay, great, you save 2 or 3% on the credit card fees, but then you have to pay somebody to learn how to do your accounting in Bitcoin, as if preparing your taxes isn't annoying enough. All of a sudden you have to now deal with something else. So I think that it's a really great direction that you guys are taking. My concern, of course, would be wanting to type things on my laptop. I know a lot of people are, I am attached to my phone, but certain things I just don't have that comfort level. But I don't know.
Well, the
Girl can
cool thing
only
about
dream.
it, you can export
Yeah.
the CSV file too. So when you want to give it to your accountant, you
Mhm.
basically go into your settings and you select export, and you can send all of that data over to your accountant. So you don't have to type in a bunch of stuff. It's all contained there in your history, and you send it over to them, and they do all of the kind of heavy lifting with that.
What if somebody forgets their password to their Airbitz wallet?
So we do have password recovery questions that you can set up once you create an account. So when you create an account, you need a username and a very strong password, and you can also create a PIN number. And the PIN number is actually an easier way to log in. But you would basically go into your settings and set up password recovery questions. And right now, there are a few more than what you think of when you think of regular security questions. Your bank will usually use these. A lot of times, maybe there are a couple, like 2 or 3. Our list is a little bit lengthier than that, but we are working on simplifying that process. So that's a good way to be able to reset your password in the event that you forget it. Now, if you don't set those password recovery questions up, we are a zero-knowledge app, so we don't have access to your password at all. You can't email us and ask for your password. And again, this is very familiar to people who are with Bitcoin, who've been with Bitcoin for a long time. You know, we try to hammer it in as much as possible. Do not forget your password, because that is the key that unlocks your value. So you have to be really, vigilant in protecting your password, and we make that as easy, I think, easier than a lot of other apps do. It's not a super long passphrase that you need, but it's still, we do have, security standards. You do have to have a very strong password, and you definitely want to write that down and set up those security questions too.
Don't set up your wallet when you're drunk, folks. That's what we're trying to say here.
Right. Because we don't have access to that information, and we don't want access to it, because we very much want to stand in line with the principles of Bitcoin, which is you control your value, and you are the only one who should have access to that.
What do you think about how things are changing in Bitcoin? Do you think that what do you think the future is going to look like? Are you concerned? Are you excited? Are you thrilled that the bankers are getting their share?
So we're in a really interesting time in Bitcoin right now. We are seeing a lot of really good discussions going on, a lot of debates going on. I think we're at a good turning point. We're going to see some of these solutions coming out to the block size debate. I hope that something comes through that is a good a good compromise for everyone that still retains the core principles. So something that Airbitz supports is segregated witness, and that's, we think that's going to be a good kind of maybe temporary fix to the block size debate. But yeah, things are a little bit, there's a lot of really good discussions going on right now, and I think the future is going to be pretty bright for Bitcoin. I think that, no matter what happens, you're going to see the network continue to exist and continue thriving, and there's still a lot of value for the network for other people who really can stand to benefit from, whether they're unbanked or or just looking for a more convenient way to spend money. Or buy things. So yeah, and as far as the banks, I mean, I think the banks still haven't maybe. It's weird with the resources that they have. You think they would put more research into Bitcoin, and you're hearing kind of a lot of this, blockchain, and maybe the banks can have their private blockchains, and I think that speaks to a kind of misunderstanding that they have about what this technology is, and why they should go with Bitcoin as opposed to private blockchains. We'll see. I don't think that Bitcoin is something that can be stolen by the banks or co-opted by the banks.
I think that there are, and I've changed my position. In general, I'm pretty anti-bank, but to be fair, I don't think that every banker is a horrible person, and that all of the banks are knowingly conspiring against us, at least not like most people at them, right? So I try to be a little bit more fair and balanced with it, and I have heard pretty compelling arguments for the need for private blockchains for banks, because they have to have certain security features, and they have to be complying with regulations, and therefore Bitcoin wouldn't really meet those requirements, so they do have to make specific things. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think one of the complaints I've heard from banks about Bitcoin is that it's too public. And then you read articles saying, "Oh, this anonymous currency," when really, you've got two sides of the same story. One is way too anonymous, and one is way too open, and really it's the same thing. And so it's a misunderstanding, but Yeah, I think banks. For me, Bitcoin was never there to just take over and destroy all fiat. It was basically there to compete. So people can peacefully exit if a currency is being mismanaged. If an economy is being mismanaged, it's like, oh, I'm out of here. And that for me is a really important part of capitalism in general, right? I mean, to be able to say, look, this isn't working out for me. I'm voluntarily going to move my money over here, whether that's gold or Bitcoin or something else, something that can be a store of value outside of a state-printed monopoly on debt.
Okay, so I have some things about that, although we do have a question from the audience. Bitcoin Rush is watching right now, and he wanted to know, will Airbitz adopt other cryptocurrencies soon? I actually am curious about that as well. Like Tatiana Coin, for example, an excellent cryptocurrency available now.
Yes, yes. Hi, Bitcoin Rush. I'm a fan of his show. He does some awesome stuff in the space. So right now we're focused on Bitcoin. Our app is going to be Bitcoin only, but our platform can be used for other types of wallets. So we are open to expanding that. So we can license out our platform if people want to build another wallet. With that tech. So right now, our mobile app is going to be focused on Bitcoin, but it's built on a platform that can be used for other ones if people choose to use it that way. So
it's like a white label wallet app as well. Like that's another source of revenue or whatever. Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so MK, tell me a little bit about your work with Bitcoin Not Bombs. And yeah, I don't know. Let's talk about why Bitcoin is the peace currency.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of work with Bitcoin Not Bombs. That was actually the first group I started writing for when I got into Bitcoin, and it came out of an alliance with antiwar.com. So when antiwar.com a couple of years ago found out that they were being spied on by the FBI, a lot of donors got really nervous and they kind of backed out. There was even some suspicion that the FBI was trying to get donor information, and so a lot of people kind of backed away. And as you know, antiwar.com is run by a very small group of people. They rely solely on donations. So when their donation stream, got hurt in that way, I mean, they suffered quite a bit, and they worked tirelessly to report on all of the different wars going on all around the world. It's an extremely monumental task to keep up with. So they were figuring out, what can we kind of do? And so the guys at Bitcoin Not Bombs, Drew Phillips and Davi Barker, they were like, well, you should start taking Bitcoin. That way it allows you to accept money from people, and their privacy can be a little bit protected. Again, it's not an anonymous currency, but it does provide a degree of privacy when you're wanting to donate to maybe kind of radical causes. And this was also shortly after WikiLeaks started taking Bitcoin because PayPal had shut down their account. So Bitcoin was a great way to route around these legacy systems, whether it was PayPal or the government targeting you. So Bitcoin Not Bombs came out of that, and we were going to be a kind of launching pad for other nonprofits. So we were trying to get other nonprofits to start taking Bitcoin. We worked with a lot of other charities and nonprofits in the space, like Free Aid and BitGive, and of course Anti-War. And we also did a lot of writing. I was the editor there. I'd sometimes write satirical pieces, or we wanted to kind of be like the loud, radical anti-war presence at conferences and other Bitcoin events to say, hey, this is a currency that's completely voluntary. This isn't something that you're forced to use or feel that you're forced to use, as with dollars. And it's not something that can be whose value can be controlled by banks or governments printing more money. This is something that's truly voluntary, that's truly yours, and that you hold completely to yourself. So we do think that it kind of promotes the values of peace. It's not backed up by legacy systems, by things like war, by things like the oil trade, and other kind of issues with the dollar and other fiat currencies too. So we were really kind of promoting that too, just, this is kind of a peace currency. And of course, currencies
It
are
is.
somewhat neutral, they can be used for whatever you want them to be used for. But I think that when you see a lot of these kind of niche markets really adopting something, that's a sign that it's a very useful tool, and that eventually that, bleeds into other markets too.
No,
So
absolutely. If you look at, for instance, throughout history, governments have always gone off of a gold standard or off of an asset-based currency before going to war, because you can't just print gold out of thin air to pay soldiers. So you can print dollars no end, give it to soldiers, and they're all happy until they see the inflation and grandma at home starts starving, even though she's got $1 million saved up over her lifetime. So this decoupling from an asset-based currency, and I think like Bitcoin is the futuristic step into an asset-based currency, because what we're finding is rare numbers. We're finding rare numbers, and those rare numbers are given value because of they're rare. So it's really quite an interesting time that we're in, where we can voluntarily step back into an asset-based currency that's globally and instantly sendable. It's stunning, and it's just so exciting to be in this space at this time.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Why do you think people like war so much? I mean, okay, so in the United States, right, we've got Trump, and he's like telling Cruz that he called him a pussy. Like, can you believe this? I
Jeez,
know, he literally called him that, which, like, I can't even say the word because I think
that's
it's
amazing.
inappropriate.
Like,
And also an inaccurate term. That's a very strong part of the body. Anyway, incidentally, whatever. So then, Ted Cruz is like, we're gonna bomb them till the sand glows, and then you hear all the people like, yeah, that's great, and I don't understand, because to me I think it's a matter of kind of brainwashing and propaganda, and I always use this as an example. You hear very few songs that are anti-war. I mean, when I wrote the Bitcoin jingle, the first thing I say is I didn't want to give any of my money to a nation based on war, because I think that
love
is
that
the
song.
main draw-in for Bitcoin for me, was just this is how they fund the death. But then at the same time, there are these people that are really pro-war, and I don't know if it's just because they've been fear-mongered and manipulated, um, but I'm not very hopeful about our presidential elections, other than to say that they will at least destroy the illusion that this place is legitimate. I mean, every time another election happens, people are like, "Oh, this is really stupid." Now this is getting more ridiculous. So thank you, Trump, for making it even more ridiculous. um,
It really seems like
Yeah,
idiocracy, doesn't it? Where the president is this big wrestler folk who's,
yes,
who's like,
President Camacho. Like, oh, the entertainment value that I've gotten from this election cycle has been great. Like, it's horrific and terrible and all of these things, but it's so hilarious. So at least we're getting that. To your question about war, it kind of depends on who it is. I think the kind of power brokers at the top of the pyramid, I guess, so to speak. I'm not super into conspiracy stuff, but there are people who stand to profit off of war and who have very, very strong financial incentives to continue these wars. Now, when you get down to your average person, I think there's more kind of manipulation involved. I think that when you see these kind of terrorist groups coming out, like it appeals to that primordial sense of wanting to be secure and wanting to be protected, and kind of that idea that we have to kill them before they kill us, kind of thing. We haven't, with as much progress as we've made, we haven't quite broken out of some of those shackles of our evolutionary past, where we're kind of stuck in this, safety security mindset, and to maybe an obsessive degree, to maybe where we inflate these threats that are not that serious to us, and that we mistake where those threats come from and the kind of history, and like, why are some of these groups existing? Why are some of these terrorist organizations doing what they do? It's not because they hate us for our freedom. It's not because they, just have some kind of, seeming irrational hatred for us. It's because of a decades-long foreign policy that has destroyed and decimated the various groups around the world. So it's very hard. There's a lot of manipulation involved. And especially someone like Trump, he really plays into that kind of like fear-based mindset. He's very like rah rah war. They're going to come over and they're going to do this and that or whatever. And I don't know, like he kind of appeals to the monkey part of our brain, that's not super rational. So, and it's unfortunate that he's doing so well. I mean, again, there's like the entertainment value there, but it's just like I have to wonder, like, I thought it was a joke. Like when he first came on the scene, I was like, there's no way, like, he's going to make it. It's like very funny. He's saying some very funny stuff. I thought it was all like, performance art. I was like, this guy is doing some great performance art, but it turns out he's actually serious. And
oh my god, that's the face palm moment, isn't it? It's just like, oh jeez. Really? I know. So he called someone a pussy. I mean, it actually reminds me of the Betty White quote that says, "Why do people say grow some balls? Balls are weak and sensitive. If you want to be tough, grow a vagina. Those things take a pounding."
Exactly. I thought it was so funny. I said that on the radio before that quote. I was like, "Oh man, I can't make pussy jokes on this show," but I'm glad someone said that.
No, it is a joke.
Pussy jokes, but I feel like that word is startlingly inaccurate. So I've tried to transition it
take
to
it back.
Yeah, exactly. Why does that like awesome place have to be derogatory? I mean, isn't that where everybody wants to go?
Awesome place, a special place. Yeah, the whole thing is crazy with the war thing, and just the concept. You said before, if some people want to send money to some radical ideas, like anti-war, is so radical. I mean, it's amazing that concept should even be radical. I mean, it's a standard. It's the default, right? Peace is the default. And war is the exception, where it's really the very last thing you want to get close to. So it's a strange world.
It is a strange world when saying, "Hey, maybe we shouldn't kill people we don't know for stupid reasons," is like the radical position.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much behind a lot of the situations that we're in now. The whole, it used to be the Russians, then it was the Vietnamese, then it was the communists, then it was the serial killer, then it was there's always some boogeyman, and behind the scenes, when you hear that the Central Intelligence Agency was funding radicalization of Pakistan in the 80s so that they could fight against the Russians in Afghanistan. And then those radicalized schools, like literally setting up a lot of schools, radical schools, to basically mobilize these people against the Russians. And then, 20 years later, we've got ISIS, and nothing is ever talked about on these big debates, these big political debates, and who really is to blame but the politics behind some of these choices. But no, it's now just some sort of big game show that adds entertainment value for people, and it is hilarious. I mean, it's face palm awful hilarious. I can't believe people actually take it serious. People actually have family debates where they almost split up being a family because of political positions on such a nonsense board game. I mean, it really is a ridiculous game, and it blows my mind every time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I keep thinking, why are people that, I mean, I guess this is part of the theater, right? Everybody's engagement in the political process. And this morning I was thinking about that, and I remembered how Ron Paul came out, 3 or 4 months later or something ridiculous, that he actually won Iowa, and how different things would have been. But to me, that regardless of how people feel about Ron Paul, if his own party is breaking rules in order to not let him in, why would any real true candidate of change be able to even make an impact? That's why I'm not impressed with Bernie. I'm like, people think Bernie's so anti-establishment. I'm like, I don't know. He seems to love government. He loves the stick. So I don't, I think that if he was saying something truly radical, which is to take away the power from this bloated, violent government, that he would never in a million years be able to get on top. But he's had a lot of success, and people like free stuff, and they don't like economics. So what are you going to do?
Right, right. And it's unfortunate because I do think that and I'm, no Democrat by any means, but he is the least bad, and that's not good. That's saying a lot, that like he's the least bad one, especially compared to how right-wing a lot of the other Democrats are, especially someone like Hillary, who's just so hawkish and trying to play the kind of moderate card. She's like, oh no, I'm moderate, I'm a feminist. And I don't know if you've probably seen some of this stuff, some of the women coming out supporting her, being like, if you don't support Hillary, like, you hate women and stuff, like Madeleine Albright, who is a woman who thinks it's okay that millions of babies starved in pursuit of her foreign policy. Like, these are just terrible people who are supporting all of these people. And yeah, I mean, the best thing to kind of do to keep your sanity, or at least for me to keep my sanity, is just mock the process and try to ignore it as much as possible. Like, laugh about it, to joke about it, but it's just like, ultimately, I'm not gonna like get worked up and get angry about it, because there's no point in it. There's enough people already getting like too angry about it, and like you were saying, getting in family arguments and stuff like that. To me, it's not important enough to break a friendship or a family tie over.
I find the whole use of different categories of people particularly disingenuous. I mean, they're like, Hillary has a vagina. If you have a vagina, you could vote for her too, and like, that is not the only qualification. And just because she's a woman is not really that impressive. And they have like the black guy, and then they're going to have like the Asian dude. Like, I don't understand how simplistic everybody is. And people are kind of falling for it. I think that Obama's, reign of terror has been, was supposed to kind of break down these walls among people, and I actually think that it's gotten worse. I think that people have become more divided, and I also find it crazy when people tell me that he's not a warmonger, and I'm like, well, if you're bombing people, even if you don't declare war, I'm pretty sure that little technicality isn't enough to warrant murdering somebody's grandpa or like their child. So I find it just wild that that people are still a fan, or that they really think that there's that much of a difference.
Yeah.
I think that's, sorry to interrupt, I think that's why I love Bitcoin and technologies like this, is where you can say, I'm exiting. I'm not going to be part of, because really for me, the only vote I have is with my money, like, quite honestly. If I decide not to buy somewhere, and a lot of people do, generally that company will either go broke or they'll change to make a positive in people's lives so that you will become a customer. The state really doesn't need to do that. They just do what they want. I mean, when was the last time that you got a card from the state saying, are you satisfied with your, what could we do differently? It never happens, right? I mean, try getting that from your school. Where your kids go, do your kids ever get a card that say, hey, can you please give us a report on the teacher, a report card for them? No, it never happens. So, but what you can do with Bitcoin is really start spending your money, which is a true form of asset-based money, I was mentioning before, and vote at places that you actually want to support, like Bitcoin's Not Bombs and stuff like that, but also in places that you support. So I really find currency is the ultimate vote, even though a lot of people, especially socialists and stuff, will say, well, the rich have more vote than the poor, but that's always the case anyway. I mean, it really is even when you don't vote with money. Even when you vote with a vote, the rich have the vote because they lobby, they do everything. It's not the person voting that changes things. It's the company lobbying in Washington or Berlin that changes things.
It's true.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's good to opt out, and I think Bitcoin has provided us a way to do that in a lot of ways, especially from the financial system that we all kind of grew up very familiar with, and seemingly it was the only option for so long in our lives. Like I never even really thought, that I would need to use anything but dollars until I started learning more about precious metals. And I was like, well, this is really interesting. This was the standard for so long, and this is something that still could be used, as people still think of as a currency. And then Bitcoin came along, and it totally flipped everything on its head about how we think of money, what money is, what it can be, and what payment systems can be too. So yeah, it provides us a really excellent voluntary alternative, and that's a big part of why I'm involved in it. And when I'm trying to get people to use Bitcoin, I tell them, just
I lost MK.
I
Wait,
think I'm back.
yeah, now you're back. Repeat that one more
Sorry about
time.
that. Yeah, so the last thing I was saying is when I'm trying to get people to use Bitcoin, I, take a very soft approach with it. It's just like try a little bit at a time, see how you like it. Don't put your life savings in it, although some people have, and I guess they've done well. But try a little bit and see if it's for you, because I think the benefits are very clear once you start using it regularly.
So I have a couple things that I wanted to add to this stuff. So before we got on the show today, I was talking about doing Liberty Fest in New York, and I want everybody to kind of, in the comments and stuff below, if they have any, advice or whatever. I'm basically going to do Liberty Fest 7 in New York City on September 9th this year.
Cool.
And I'm a little nervous because I want to make sure that we have enough attendees and I have enough sponsors and stuff. But what I really want to kind of do in terms of a theme for this is liberty in the future. And for me, when I fell in love with Bitcoin, it wasn't because people told me about it for 3 hours while
Hello?
I'm sorry, did you hear everything that I said?
You
It cut
popped
out.
off about 5
Oh,
seconds ago.
oh, okay, cool. So anyway, what I was saying is that when I first heard about Bitcoin, I didn't want to um, listen because it was really boring. But then what I noticed was, I was going to all these different libertarian events post Ron Paul, and nobody was coming anymore, and people were really kind of dejected, and there were only a few diehard people that were there. So what I did was I went to Jeffrey Tucker's cryptocurrency convention in Atlanta, and even though, again, I had no idea what everybody was talking about, that hope was so appealing to me. That ability to not have to say the L word, libertarian, and frighten all the little people so they scatter. This was something that was not asking permission, did not require me to stand outside with a picket sign and freeze to death, and it was just a simple opting out. And I'm really excited about all the possibilities, not only with Bitcoin, but with all these other emerging technologies that I've had an opportunity to learn about. So if people know about stuff that might fit in that theme, I think we'll definitely do a Bitcoin 101 thing. I want to do a Bitcoin 2.0. I want to have Pamela Morgan come out and do a talk about smart contracts and maybe walk us through how you actually do one instead of, some pie in the sky idea. And I don't know if you guys have any suggestions. I think that we need to start thinking of solutions outside of what we have, and Bitcoin has really sparked that in me. And I think in a lot of different people.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pamela is such an awesome person. She spoke at both of the conferences I organized, and just incredibly talented. I really think she should be keynoting a lot of these cryptocurrency conferences or blockchain conferences, because the smart contracts thing is just fascinating. If Bitcoin has changed the way we think of so many things, not just currencies and payment systems, but contracts too, which again is one of those things we just kind of assumed worked a certain way. And we were like, oh, it just kind of works this way. This is what we got, But it turns out, no, we can do so much more, and it's really awesome. And no matter where Bitcoin goes, it's laid the groundwork for so many other cool applications of the technologies. So we're definitely going to see things really disrupted in so many areas. Like I really think we can't even begin to imagine how many areas this tech is really going to disrupt.
Definitely, definitely. I so agree with that. I saw I tweeted about it on my Voltoro Twitter about someone who's made a smart contract where you can wager against a chess game. And it's got there's no central authority. You're betting on an outcome of a chess game, because chess has, a chess computer would have some sort of interface to a smart contract, because smart contracts, the only missing part is how to interface with the real world. But when you're interfacing with machines, they can talk to these smart contracts and trigger certain outcomes. So it's really interesting seeing this evolve.
Are you guys worried about Terminator 2 coming true?
There's too many other things to worry about.
Well,
Yeah,
they have,
right.
actually, Pamela told me that they have like murder bots, like robots that just go out and kill people. There's actually, this seems sort of funny, but it's not, because they are petitioning at the UN saying, please don't let killer robots exist. There's a whole movement. If people just Google killer robots, this is real. So I don't
you
know.
mean like the ones that like fly over and kill kids in other countries?
Oh, don't. Those are drones, and they're needed for our safety. Gosh,
That's
MK, you're
something
so
else.
limited.
Different
Damn
killer
hippie.
robots.
No, they're like killer robots like in Terminator 2. And what they like about them is that they can kill without being swayed by emotion. And this is an actual thing. So I find that a little
Terrible.
nerve-wracking. But I mean, I
Jesus.
guess it's sort of like the internet. The internet can be used for good, and the internet can be used for evil. Bitcoin can be used for good or evil. They're just technologies, and I don't really think that we're going to put the cat back in the bag.
I want self-driving cars. I'm excited about those.
I really
I'm
don't like
excited about
driving,
those.
always. And I don't like when other people drive, so I'm not sure how that's going to work out for me, but I'm interested.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's something, I've seen a lot of backlash against them, like, oh, how are we going to trust these, like, robots? It's like, you trust the apps on your phone to do all kinds of stuff, to take care of your
To spy on
finances.
you, make sure the government
Yeah.
knows what you're doing. It's
But,
very
I don't know.
important.
Like, I come from a 3D animation special effects background, and you do what's called tracking, where you have to track a certain pixel, and it used to always like over here, and you just spend the time doing these. And I think, oh, imagine if this is self-driving cars tracking the lanes on the road, and just all of a sudden jumps over here. So I think it's got a fair bit to go, but it's definitely,
Yeah.
I mean, it's accelerating so quickly. It was only 8 years ago when DARPA put out the reward for a self-driving cars across deserts, and no one could do it. And now we've got Google racking up millions of man hours, human hours, I should say, with all these self-driving cars on actual roads, driving with actual cars and actual spotlights and actual kids running across, kicking balls across a road. I mean, it's amazing how fast this stuff moves, and the disruption is huge. And I remember talking to this taxi driver saying, look, are you like studying something while you're sitting in these taxi ranks? And he's like, no. And I'm like, dude, I think you should be, because the self-driving car is coming up pretty quickly. And he's like, well, what about your industry? And I'm like, yeah, well, the special effects industry, a lot of it went off to Asia, where it was cheaper. I saw that coming, and I decided to follow my other passion, which was economics. And he was like, oh, maybe you're right. Maybe I should start studying. And because it's self-driving cars are really massive disruption. I mean, the truck drivers, the taxi drivers, the courier drivers, so a huge part of the economy is based on taking care of these things on wheels that yeah, is going to change the world a lot. But you know, I mean, it's funny. People always say, "Well, what are all these people going to do?" I mean, in the before the Xerox machine came along, we had we had warehouses full of students retyping documents for people, and all of a sudden, Xerox comes out with a photocopier, wipes out millions of jobs. I mean, not millions, but hundreds and hundreds of thousands of jobs. What happened? They just moved elsewhere. They in the economy, they went to McDonald's and these other jobs that people do while they study. So I think it'll be interesting to see how the economy shifts and what other jobs will be taken over from these sort of jobs, from drivers' jobs.
I don't know. I'm a little worried about people. Yesterday, my mom's doorbell rang, and there was a lady, and she was saying that her husband had just been fired from her job, and that she's a cleaning lady, but now she really needs to amp it up and get more hours because, you know, her husband just lost his job. And it made me really sad because I think that, you know, especially here in America, we're just getting raked over the coals every 5 seconds. I mean, fee for this, a fee for that, a fine for this, tax that. I mean, we're just having the lifeblood starved from us. People are just sucking it right out. And it's unfortunate that people have to have all this stress. And I think that that stress
Yeah.
is going to make it harder for them to accept new technologies, and that fear makes them a lot more easy to manipulate. So I don't know how we can really push things
Well,
around.
it's definitely an interesting topic because you know, you get into economic theory a lot there, where actually what happens is things get cheaper. Self-driving cars destroys a lot of jobs, but as well it makes catching a cab extremely cheap. You know, so what happens is that society in general gets cheaper. The problem is we have a currency, and a lot of people don't look at it. Anyone without a libertarian background generally, or an economic background, do not look at base things like currency and how it's made and how it's created. Because we're living in a society where we're living on debt that's printed out of thin air, this is a whole distortion, and an inflationary distortion on a deflationary economy that's going down in value. I mean, phones are going down in value. Everything is getting cheaper and cheaper. When actually they should be getting more expensive because of money printing, and services are getting more expensive. So I think what will happen is, if you had an actual asset-based economy, we would simply see people not having as much work around, but new things coming up. Of course, there's always new things that people can do, but also things get cheaper, and the cost of living becomes cheaper. So it's a fine balancing act, and it's an interesting one. We can only wait and see what happens. Especially, I think the greatest hope we can have is to try to get as much manipulation or control out of the markets, to allow the markets to level out, because that's generally what markets do, right? They level out to a point where people can either afford it or not. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
agreed.
hmm. You know, I was just thinking about is also how things are cheaper, and but you know, like I go to the market and I've been trying to buy organic stuff, and it's really expensive right now. I assume it will get more inexpensive. You know, Whole Foods is going to open up that 365 store, which is like their Trader Joe's, kind of like the ghetto Whole Foods, but still high quality. But it really freaks me out the way that our food systems are being poisoned. And then I started thinking about how Putin, of all people, is speaking out against this. And I don't know, it's kind of scary when Putin starts to make sense. Although there was an activist, a Russian activist, her name is Vera Kichinova. It reminded me to ask her to come onto the show. She put a scathing post on my Facebook when I was asking people about that. So I don't know. I think that there's a lot of manipulation going around, but oddly enough, Putin seems to kind of have certain things under wraps, you know?
No,
He's
everyone has
he's
certain things. I mean, what do they
Broken
well,
say?
I
glass, right?
know.
Twice a day.
huh?
Yeah, that's right.
Cool. So, guys, what's going on? Oh, wait, actually, Josh, I want to ask you a question. I keep seeing headlines about gold going up these past weeks. Is that true? What's going
Yeah,
on?
it's going up and up and up. It's really it's quite interesting to watch. I think we're seeing the bottom in gold, and as oil prices are tanking, we it's really interesting because we thought maybe other asset classes would be following, but actually oil is a very special case because there's a bit of mistrust from the Saudis after what happened in the 80s. We won't go too much into it, but with OPEC, they mistrust OPEC, and so they just keep keeping the pumps going. But gold is, people are starting to realize, not quite sure, especially in the Eurozone, what's happening. A lot of people have seen now Greece basically shut its banks overnight and then reopen with taxing people a percentage. We saw it in Cyprus. People are passing laws, countries are passing laws to basically allow for these bail-ins. And I mean, bail-ins actually seem better than bailouts to me, even though they're horrific, because bailouts basically socialize these problems and privatize the good times, whereas bail-ins are like, hey, you guys had your money in a bad bank, bad luck. And really what we should be seeing now is transparency in the banking sector. That's the most important part, and that's what I would like to see. And hopefully they take a page out of what we're doing with our technology, with our open books, our glass books protocol, to have true transparency. And this is one thing Bitcoin also does, is it allows for exchanges to have ultimate transparency and still have privacy for the users. So that's a really important thing in this day and age. So I think gold is definitely on a rally. Keep an eye on it, folks. It's breaking some points. By the way, this is not buy advice or sell advice by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, I saw Max Kaiser the other day, and he was saying that Deutsche Bank was in trouble. And I was like, Deutsche Bank? I'm like, that's a really, really strong bank. Germany is the king of money in Europe. So what's the story?
Now, Deutsche Bank's been in trouble for a long time. It's we'll see what happens there. It's I mean, everyone says to me like, yeah, Deutsche Bank, but I've been saying it for ages as well. Ooh, Deutsche Bank. Yeah. I quite honestly don't trust any of the banks right now. They're so leveraged up to here in most sectors. I'm really, this is why I'm all in Bitcoin and gold, and some blue chips. I really don't, hold a little bit of money in the bank for spending money. It's kind of like a hot wallet for me, the banks. But I definitely wouldn't recommend people storing their life savings in a bank.
I don't know. I have a lot of my small fortune in Bitcoin, and that's a joke, guys, in case people are like looking for me, and my millions like a leprechaun. But I don't know. I get a little nervous though because the Bitcoin price is so finicky sometimes. I think that the other shoe is going to drop and things are really going to get crazy out there. I try and recommend to people to get into Bitcoin or at least precious metals because they're a little bit more secure, but not everybody's into it, and I don't know. It could be a little bit nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I mean, what would you say, MK? I feel that we're in this discovery phase of Bitcoin, price discovery phase, where really we don't know what this thing's worth. It's such a new technology. It's amazing in terms of potential, but the market can't quite grasp the value of it yet, and will do over time, and we're already seeing it stabilize a little bit. I mean, compared to the early days, geez, we've been around the 400 mark now for a while, so it's it is stabilizing out. Yeah, it has its little peaks and as whales sort of jump in and out of the pond, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting. What do you think, MK?
Yeah, this is something I've been saying for a while, and because I've been in Bitcoin a while, I probably since I jumped in when it was about $30 a Bitcoin because it had reached parity with silver at that point, and I was working at Roberts and Roberts, which is a precious metals brokerage firm, and I was like, whoa, this is kind of serious. Now I don't have like a Bitcoin fortune or anything like that, so I didn't really get that many Bitcoin, but I saw it go all the way up and then go all the way back down, and then there was that nice little lull where it just stayed consistent. Now a lot of people had been scared out at that point. You know, Mount Gox had happened and a few other kind of crises had happened, but price stability is a really good thing. You know, it may not be as exciting when the price, you know, it stays stable over long periods of time as opposed to when it shoots up or when it goes down. You definitely see more press around those price increases or decreases, but that's not really something you want when you're wanting people to use a currency. You want stability. You want something that you know, keeps its value fairly consistent over a long period of time. So it's actually a good thing when people are kind of, you know, when like the average press or whatever kind of looks away because it's like, oh, nothing interesting is happening in Bitcoin. That's actually an interesting thing for me, because it's like, finally, it's stability. This is a very, very much a good thing, and I wish more people thought of it that way. I'd like to see more people in Bitcoin, you know, instead of being like, oh, go to the moon, go to the moon. That's fine, you know, we all want to make money, but ultimately it doesn't help people want to use the currency more. They need more incentives, and so stability is one thing that you want to look for, and then they also need other incentives to get them to use it. So that's something we've kind of. Uh-oh, I think may have lost you guys.
No, we're here.
No, no.
We got you.
Okay, sorry, froze for a second. But yeah, it's something we kind of tried to figure out with Airbitz too. So that's why we integrated with Fold app to give people discounts. You know, you can get 20% off of Starbucks gift cards and about up to 10% on Target gift cards. And I mean, even if you could shave 20% off of your coffee budget a month, that's pretty good. And we're looking at adding more retailers soon. So we think, you know, for your average consumer who goes to these, you know, places, they want to save a little bit of money. You want to make it easier for them to save money too. You don't want them to have to search for coupons online and have to print them out and stuff like that. You know, if they can just have it in their phone, that's really, really easy. And Gift is great for this too. I've used Gift, which is GYFT. It's another app. I've used them for years now. Also really great. And there are a few other services like that. So that's one way to kind of figure out, you know, how do we get incentives for people to use it, and I'm sure that as time goes on, there's going to be more creative ways. Some merchants even give discounts too, because they want to pass those savings on to consumers that they gain from not using credit cards. So you know, that's another thing to kind of look for. I think everyone wants to save money, so.
I don't want to save money. No, no, of course, that's great. That's fantastic. You know, this is one thing that you know, I love services like, what's the one? I've gone out of blank. There's so many cool services right now, but that you can buy from Amazon for
Purse. Yeah, I was just about to say Purse is another great one.
You know, there's so many really cool ideas. Like, I remember when Purse came out, and I thought, oh, that's genius. You know, people want to buy Bitcoin, people want to buy stuff, and they want to pay a bit more for Bitcoin. So there's the discount. It's great. Yeah.
Okay, guys. Well, this has been a really good conversation. As usual, I have some really nice guests. And next week, I don't know who we have booked for next week, but we'll keep people posted on TatianaMoroz.com. And before we sign off here, we need a magic word for or phrase for our audience at LTB, great network, if people need some good podcasts. Really? MK, do you have a magic word or phrase for us? It can't be Airbitz. It has to be something like power to the people or whatever.
Let's see. Well, I guess I could reuse that. So, yeah, Bitcoin is magical internet money for radicals.
Wow, that's a mouthful. Okay, Bitcoin
Not too long.
Yeah, wait, no,
Doesn't need to be like more of like one word.
I kind of like that one though. People are just we're gonna make it hard for them. So repeat it one more time slowly. I will repeat it for
Bitcoin
you.
is magical internet money for radicals.
All right, good. I like that.
It's
Everybody, if
magic
you want to be
money.
radical like us, get your Bitcoins, use them at Airbitz, send them off to get some gold with Vaultoro. And if you want to get the word out about your Bitcoiny love, you can go to me at cryptomediahub.com and go to tatianamoroz.com to find out more about my projects and music. Guys, there's so much cool stuff happening with music soon.
Yeah.
But anyway, what's your Twitter handles, y'all?
Mine's at MK Lords, and that's pretty much it. If you just Google MK Lords, that's my name under pretty much all social media, except for Facebook, which made me change it to my real fake name, but whatever. But yeah, MK Lords everywhere.
It's a very
Very
cool
cool.
name.
Thank you.
And Josh, what are you at, Vaultoro?
I'm simply at Voltoro. Yeah, you can keep it. Oh, and by the way, folks, Coinergy, which is coinergy.com, just the professional trading platform for lots of professional graphing and schematics and lines and everything possible to trade is now partnered with Voltoro, so you can really get in there and draw all the lines you want and get all that technical analysis, which is really, really cool. And they have a fantastic service, so check them out too.
Nice.
Oh, Tatiana, you're out. You're gone.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
that's about it for the day. Thank you, everyone. Check in soon. We'll be doing some bonus episodes, I think, coming up. Thank you, MK, for joining us. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks to Liberty.me and Let's Talk Bitcoin for being wonderful places to put our content.